we are technically live. So once you guys share it, let me know, and then I'll kind of pull this off the screen. And, so you can go to MBC to our YouTube page as well.
I'll get it from you.
And then tweet it as well.
Just tweeted it. The link didn't show up. It didn't show up as like a clickable entity.
Go to our page then. I think that's just the best way.
I'm going to delete it, Luke.
Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can share to.
It does say live
copy.
stream.
Here it is. Here it is. What's on the screen now is what should be the clickable. Is that different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Might need you to read that off.
Yes. It's so the utu.be/H, so capital H, lowercase s, lowercase a, capital RPU, Ron Paul University, lowercase y, 7, lowercase w, 50.
Okay, tweeting it now.
Okay, and we are recording, and we'll get let's get this football machine rocking. Let's see. I'm going to back up my recording too.
Yeah, looks good.
All right, looks good? Mm-hmm. Good. All right, have a good show, gentlemen. Let's start the football machine.
Back on the show, the Zone Coverage Diversion Network, trying to provide moments of humor and information into your lives amidst the global pandemic. Sam Ekstrom back on the show with Luke Inman. Might hear from Arif Hassan later on. Right now, it's a two-man panel at the MBC Studios with our Purell. Is this on-brand Purell? No, it's off-brand. Is off-brand hand sanitizer still good?
Yeah, did you get a good deal on it?
Yeah, it's on clearance. See, it says clearance. We're taking every precaution to social distance here, and we're happy to be here once again. And as usual, these shows week to week, you never know who's going to be here, who's going to be on a screen, whether we're going to be here at all, whether we're going to be allowed out of our house. Governor Tim Walz obviously making the shelter-in-place mandate a little bit earlier today. I thought he did a great job with the announcement. Very informative, very knowledgeable, and we encourage everyone to be responsible, be safe in these next few weeks, and we hope to continue producing content for you and just give you something to get you through the time that you're spending at home. I've got something at home that's keeping me occupied. New baby.
Oh, make it about you.
Right.
New baby.
We actually
created a new life.
We planned this so that we would be quarantined anyway, really.
What a wild time. See, you don't know any different, but I'm assuming this is kind of a blessing in disguise for you because you don't have all those random family members, the in-laws, the crazy uncles, the crazy cousins coming in and out of your house. And you kind of, you have a legitimate excuse. Say, no, stay at home. We'll introduce you when the time is right. And it's probably nice and quiet over at your household, right?
It's a little too quiet.
A little too quiet.
It was great to get out of the house today and get to come here and disinfect my area and, try to do something else instead of be home just for an afternoon. It's great.
This is your first time out of the house, like you said. What did you think? You drove here. It's only like a 6-minute drive, but what did you think? Did you know? Is it kind of creepy and calm and eerie outside or same old?
I thought there were going to be
tumbleweeds
going through the street, bars on the windows, little colonies formed sort of in the intersections, stoplights, shattered and on the ground. It wasn't quite like that. There is still society out there, including here at the MBC Studios. Glad you're with us. Vikings free agency talk for the next hour. Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, zonecoverage.com. Still producing content there, by the way. We've got a lot of new Vikings contributors. Check them out. Among them, Drew Meyerwald, Chris Schad, Bo Mitchell, John Tuvey, Nick Edlund. We're beefing up the staff. We're giving work to people in this time of financial uncertainty. So we're happy to be doing that and having the content. Lot to talk about, and let's start with the most recent news and sort of work backwards. Vikings sign wide receiver Tajay Sharp from the Tennessee Titans, and Anthony Zettel, defensive lineman from a variety of teams, most notably the Detroit Lions in 2017 when he was a 16-game starter. Neither of these are jaw-dropping moves, Luke. These are the moves you make when you're on a limited budget, when you know you don't have a lot of cash to spend. Vikings have about $12 million in cap right now. Maybe one notable trade coming, we don't know. But if they're going to bring someone in like a Trent Williams or a Joe Thuney, they have money to do that. But Tajay Sharp, probably a small one-year deal. Feels a little to me like Josh Doxson, a youngish receiver who's maybe got some upside, had a lot of promise, didn't perform as a lot of people expected in Tennessee. I remember first game of his career against the Vikings, day after you got married, by the way, week 1, 2016. And Tajay Sharp looked awesome against the Vikings secondary. Awesome. 7 catches, 76 yards. That was sort of the peak for him. He never really amounted to a lot in Tennessee. He was a little more efficient last year. He is not a yards after catch receiver. He's not a deep threat. Actually, they moved him to the slot a little bit. And there's some of the highlights right there, 2016.
Burning Trey Waynes on that comeback.
Yeah.
Shocker.
By the way,
Trey Waynes again.
Bengals are going to have fun this year. Waynes, Alexander, Von Bell, they just signed too. But no, Tajay Sharp, they moved him more to the slot end of 2019. He actually had some decent success, had a really nice passer rating when targeted last year, like 127, 5th best in the league when he was targeted. And again, Tennessee's had quarterback issues there. We just saw a duck thrown by Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill last year too. But what do you think of Tajay Sharp? I mean, Rappaport tweeted right out of the gate, this is the new number 2 receiver to replace Stephon Diggs. That's laughable.
Yeah, that's the
no
guy.
way. This is a depth signing at most.
At most. Do you remember when even some people on this show were vastly excited for Jordan Taylor from Denver last year? Pencil him in. Forget pencil. Pen, Sharpie him in. He's going to be the number 3 wide receiver.
Other people were excited for Josh Doxson, too.
Yeah, not me, though, no. Making plays. And sure, he had a splash play here or there in training camp. Doesn't even make the final 53. So Taj Sharp could be a guy that certainly does make the final 53, especially given how weak the depth is at wideout. But I got to tell you, I like him coming out of UMass, over 100 catches. He's not a deep burner. He's not a big, bulky, go up and get it. But he's a good possession receiver, Sam. And that's, I think, what the Vikings need. Saying that, I really don't think he's in a position right now to leapfrog Chad Beebe or Olabisi Johnson right now on the depth chart. I think those are your starting 4 wideouts as of now. They run a lot of 12, a lot of 21 personnel. I expect Irv Smith to be in a lot of serious discussion to be that 3rd or 4th weapon or target in the passing game. So, like Taj Sharp, great deal, by the way. Great. I mean, 1 year, less than $1 million, I think, or right on, maybe right on the head. About $1 million contract, low risk, a little bit higher reward, but
only 25.
Only 25. I don't see him being anything higher than maybe wide receiver 5, maybe wide receiver 4 if he comes in and balls out. But I think Chad Beebe, Olabisi Johnson still in the future plans as 3 and 4, and then of course you're going to draft a wideout in the first 2-3 picks for sure.
Exactly right.
If not 2.
This is a 2 wide receiver team. They're going to go 12. Yep. They're going to go 12. They're going to have 2 wide receivers, and it's going to be Adam Thielen and I think a rookie draft pick. Mm-hmm. Any rookie draft pick you take, you're going to want to give the opportunity above Tajay Sharp. And honestly, Chad Beebe was a huge part of this team's plans before the Raiders game. When he messes up the ankle, misses the next 13, I think Chad Beebe's going to be in the mix if he stays healthy, which is a question mark. But BC Johnson as well, I think probably has more high upside than Tajay Sharp as well. So I'm not declaring him even a roster lock at this point. I think he'll compete for a depth spot, like you said, wide receiver 5 max. And I think the Anthony Zettel signing on the defensive side is a similar type of deal. He's going to be in the mix as a rotational pass rusher. And he was, in terms of analytics last year, 134th of all defensive linemen, according to PFF. His most notable season came in 2017 when he was a starter for the Detroit Lions. 6.5 sacks in 16 games. Not shabby, but again, he only stuck for 1 year there, bounced around Cincinnati, San Francisco. I think he was with Cleveland for a cup of coffee, but Anthony Zettel hasn't really been an impact player in 3 years now. And again, not declaring him a roster lock either. I think this is sort of the Stephen Weatherly replacement as that backup potential pass rusher.
Yeah, I mean, no secret. They want a rotation of guys. They lost Everson Griffin. They're probably going to be without 2 of their rotational pieces with Stephen Weatherly, as you mentioned. They're probably going to draft at least one guy in the first 3-4 picks as well, just like Whiteout. But Zettel, you know why I like him? He's flashed against the Vikings. Do you remember in, I think it was 2017, Case Keenum, when he was starting at the helm under center? Zettel had 2 sacks with the Lions, and there was actually the first 3-4 weeks, the first month of that season, Zettel was outstanding. He was actually PFF's top edge rusher, and then he kind of dipped off. But I think it was total 20 pressures against the quarterback in those first 5, maybe 6 weeks. He was really good. He flashed a little bit. Injuries, he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit behind Ziggy Ansah, and then, of course, they brought in the new coach from New England 2 years ago. He's gotten lost in the shuffle. Certainly not anything that I'm going to sit here and bang the table. He should be the starting defensive end opposite Danielle Hunter, but of the 2, Taj Sharp and Zettel, surprisingly enough, I think I'm in the minority. I think Zettel's more likely to stick on the 53 than a guy like Taj Sharp.
Yeah, could be, and they definitely have need there, especially after Everson Griffin departs. We moved to this Everson Griffin news, who leaves the Vikings after a decade. And we were both confident, not just you, Luke, not just me. A lot of people were confident he was going to be back. And for that matter, the team was confident. They gave us all the reason in the world to believe that Everson Griffin was going to return. And it sounds like it came down to money. And the Vikings were pinched. And again, this makes me believe that there is another move coming from Minnesota, because they claim to not have the space to do it. They do have the money. So that tells me that there's something else that's coming that might have prevented them from signing Everson Griffin. But 74.5 sacks, 10 years. I mean, what a career in Minnesota. And if he never returns to the Vikings, that's quite a legacy that he leaves.
He's been iconic. Leslie era, 4th-round pick out of USC, had some off-the-field stuff there. Falls to the 4th round, starts out as an outside linebacker. He's on special teams as a gunner, works his way up. B-Rob was kind of his mentor, if you will, and then he ends up kind of superseding B-Rob as the number 1 defensive end on that team. But he's been outstanding, man. I mean, what a great story coming out of USC as a 4th-round pick to rise up into really one of the best, and maybe at a time, the best base 4-3 defensive end into the NFL. For me, it's the vocal leadership. It's the heart and soul.
Huge.
I mean, Harrison Smith, probably a future Hall of Famer. He's outstanding. Anthony Barr can be used in a variety of ways. Xavier Rhodes was a number 1 lockdown corner for a bit. None of them had the vocal leadership and presence of Everson Griffin, whether it's on the field to get you fired up, to kind of light the fire, so to speak, whether it was in the locker room after the game. He was the veteran, the older guy that was the leader of the team. So not saying Harrison Smith can't be that, not saying another guy can't step up like Danielle Hunter or Anthony Barr, but I haven't seen what I've seen from Everson Griffin, from anybody, not just defense, but offense as well, to be that kind of vocal leader, that vocal presence, to lift everybody's spirits and get everybody jacked up before the game. So that's what hurts me the most.
A lot of silent assassins on that defense.
Yeah, no kidding.
Danielle,
well
Harrison.
Said. Yeah, well said. Trey Waynes.
Trey Waynes.
Don't think he ever said a peep.
No. I never heard his voice.
I was so confident, Sam. I even texted you when it happened, when he announced on social media he was not going to be back with the Vikings. I was so sure this guy, after everything the Vikings have done, after where he's at in his career, 32, correct me if I'm wrong, 33, pushing 33.
32, yep.
After what happened with his mental breakdown and the fact the Vikings stuck by him, it just felt like he wanted to repay the favor, so to speak, and say thank you for sticking by me at my worst. I want to stick by you at your worst in a quote-unquote cap hell situation. And we went back and forth all offseason. You said, well, look, I mean, you're talking, what, 8-9 million is still going to be a value deal. I said probably 4, 5, 6 million, and you give them a lot of guaranteed money up front to kind of combat that.
Yeah, a couple of years.
So you still get a big chunk of money up front, but you help the team in an obvious cap hell kind of situation. When he decided to go, I was shocked. And until he signs with another team, despite the social media, I'm still not convinced
You're
that
holding
he
out hope?
doesn't end up back in Minnesota in purple. He doesn't want.
You're such an optimist.
These guys don't want to move their whole life, their families, the kids in their school, their wife, everybody at this stage in their career.
But
he's already got the second contract. He's already restructured, got a lot of guaranteed money. I just think he wants to play these final 2-3 years of his career where he started in Minnesota.
And who knows, maybe a reunion is in store someday. If things don't work out in his next home, maybe he's not as effective with different coaches in a different system. Maybe changing environments hurts his mental health too. I don't want to project that on him, but I know that, stability is good for Everson Griffin. They want to surround him with everything around him to succeed. Maybe someday he does wind up back in Minnesota where it all started. I think he retires a Viking. I think he's a Ring of Honor candidate. I just think that his agent, Brian Murphy, probably said, this is your value. And his eyes got wide. He said, wait, what? I could make $11, $12 million. Jadeveon Clowney's going to set a market for me, and then I can sort of piggyback off of that. And the Vikings want me to take 6. Maybe when he made those statements at the end of the year, he didn't know the type of sacrifice a hometown discount was going to require. And now that it's been open to him, what? I can make $10 million or more dollars? Sorry, Minnesota, I'm going to go get that somewhere else as much as it pains me to do it.
I get it. I really do. And if this was his first contract or even second contract, I would say go get paid. You earned it. Go get your money. I'm an advocate of these guys going to get their worth while they can. You're an injury away from never playing again. Sharif Floyd, look at him. You never know. But the fact that this will be his third re-signing, I just don't think a couple extra million, and I know what you're saying, Luke, it's not a couple, it's 5 or 6 or 7 million. There's ways around all that. Lane Johnson counted for $1 million against the Eagles salary cap last year, and they paid him all that guaranteed money up front. They did that somewhat with Eric Kendricks not long ago to create cap room. So there's ways to get you paid without really hurting the team's cap. So I just don't think, again, a couple extra million at this point in his career is worth moving to a team like Miami, just for example, and being 3-13 your last 3 years. I just don't see it until I see somebody pick him up, and maybe it's a done deal, all right? Maybe Dallas Cowboys are going to pick him up or some other team, but until I see it, I just don't believe it.
A lot of people think that the Michael Pierce money, too much for the position, too much for a rotational nose tackle who's not going to be playing all 3 downs. I think that money could have been utilized elsewhere. What's your take? I believe this happened after last week's show. I think this was a Friday signing, so we haven't addressed it yet. Michael Pierce signed 3 years, $27 million, $9 million per year. Okay, Michael Pierce is great. The underlying stats of Michael Pierce, fantastic. He's a better run stuffer than Linval Joseph was either of the last 2 years. So he is an upgrade, and he's a tad cheaper than Linval Joseph was. He's younger. This is a great player. I'm just concerned about the dollar figure when you had Danny Shelton, an effective nose tackle, signed for 2 years, $8 million. Even Andrew Billings signs for 1 year, $3.5. Did the Vikings want to toss so many of their eggs in this basket for, let's be honest, Michael Pierce is going to play 35, 40 snaps. He's not going to be a 3-down impact player. Pass-happy league, as you like to say. He's not going to be making an impact on passing downs. Probably not going to be rushing the passer on 3rd and 12, 3rd and 6, what have you. Do you think his impact to repel the run game is enough to justify it?
Well, I'm with you, Sam. I think when I first saw the numbers, I was pretty shocked. They go out, they cut Xavier Rhodes, clear $8 million. They cut Linval Joseph, clear $10 million. You're thinking, all right, they're going to be really smart and wise with
they're
this
going to use
here,
$18 million to sort of jigsaw together 3 or 4 players.
Yep. And when I saw the Pierce numbers, and I will say this, the first year is only like 5.5, maybe 6. So it's a little bit better than I first initially thought. But I said, whoa, for a guy who's really only started and played 50% of the games and snaps, I get it, he's young. You're kind of hitting the reset button on Linval Joseph. And I said, that's a lot of money for a guy that's just not super set in stone with who he is. Is he just a rotational guy? Why didn't he start more games in Baltimore? Then I started watching him, and it was pretty clear right out the gate that from a run-stopping perspective, this guy is one of the best young, 3-4 technique guys in the league. He's got a lot of speed. He's got a lot of size. He's got a lot of range. 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 He's And I'm not going to say athletic, but powerful nose tackles throughout the entire league. And while we sit here and say it's a pass-happy league, who cares about nose tackles? You can get a Danny Shelton for cheap. I think this situation reminds me a lot when Mike Tice went and signed Antoine Winfield, and there was about 5 cornerbacks he could have went and signed. And it was one of those where he said, yeah, we didn't just want to go get a guy. We had to go get the right guy. And I think Michael Pierce, once he's really submerged in this Mike Zimmer defense with Andre Patterson, and they can really use all his talent, so to speak, and really finish molding and developing him, this guy is so strong. I was watching his film. He's got such a great anchor and leg drive. He will bully guys around like Shaq Mason, Marcus Pouncey, as we're seeing on the screen right here. He is going to be one of the best nose tackle run stoppers in the league. And why that's important is because when the Vikings are at their best defensively, what they're doing is they're stopping the run on 1st and 2nd down, and they're setting teams up for 3rd and long situations. When they had the number 1 defense in the league in 2017, they had the number 1 3rd down defense in the league. They broke the record. It's because Linval Joseph was playing out of his mind. Their run ability to stop the run was one of the best in the league. And I think Michael Pierce is going to bring back what we quietly didn't realize was a underperforming Linval Joseph. Everybody just Linval's in there. We should be okay, right? Well, the last 2 years he's been pretty soft. I hate to say that. A lot of injuries, a lot of surgeries that we didn't really realize maybe the capacity, how extreme they were. And the guy's 32, 33. You hit the reset button. Although safety may not be a super important piece to this puzzle on Mike Zimmer's defense, as we're going to find out here with Anthony Harris.
Yeah.
Nose tackle and stopping the run still is, and I think it always will be. And you're going to see that this year with just how good at stopping the run the Vikings go back to. I don't want to say go back to, but the emphasis they have on 1st and 2nd down and creating those 3rd and long situations to let the guys pin their ears back and let their corners sit on an island, go make some plays.
Yeah, the problem with Joseph last couple of years is I didn't feel like he was ever 100%. He had shorter off seasons because of surgeries. He was playing injured. He was missing time. And when he was out, frankly, I didn't feel like there was as big a drop-off as there should have been, which signals to you that, okay, it might be time to part ways. Now, Michael Pierce is 27, still young, very heavy, though. He's had problems with weight in the past, had ankle issues last year. So if there's a red flag, it's that, okay, is he going to have the cardiovascular fitness to keep his body healthy? Because there's a lot of strain there. When you have the big body, you got to move in those tight quarters, knees, ankles, feet, right? That's what you got to keep healthy. So can he get well conditioned to a point where, okay, we can rely on him for 16 games? I think he's had his eyes opened about the weight situation. He's been working with dietitians. He's been working more on his explosiveness. He's not just all about, sitting there lifting. He's actually conditioning his body more, he told us. So I think he's in a good spot, and I think the Vikings are going to like him. It's just they don't have cornerbacks. They don't have they don't have a 3-tech. Hercules Mataafa better be pretty good. Jalen Holmes better be pretty good. I would have
Johnson, they'll probably draft another guy.
Shelby Harris was a nice sort of, upstart defensive end or 3-tech last year, I should say, in Denver. Might have liked to sign him with that money. They probably can't do that now.
No, you're not wrong at all. And I think it really needs to be talked about that this is going to be a little mini rebuild. There's going to be regression. There was 4 or 5 years of the same continuity, same quote unquote. We always joke about chemistry on defense. That's unheard of in the NFL. We were due to take a step back. I don't think we're going to be 3-13 step back or even 6-10, but 8-8 is probably going to be realistic. And it's they're doing it the right way where they're setting themselves up for 2021. They're going to clear a lot of that cap. They're going to have a lot of more ammo. They have loads of draft picks, and we don't even know if they're going to get another early one for Anthony Harris. But it tells you what I go back to, that the emphasis, the priority for Mike Zimmer is maybe not cornerback. Hey, I can turn Holton Hills and Chris Boyd's
he's going to have to
into starting caliber, at least middle of the pack, if not better. I can turn Anthony Harris undrafted into starting caliber and playmakers. But I need a nose tackle. I need to be able to stop the run. That's what I build my defense on. And if I can build and get the guys up front in the middle of the defense the right way. Don't worry about the outside, the boundary, the back end. I will take care of the rest. And I think that's what you're going to see. And I think this move, especially how much they paid him, kind of emphasizes that nose tackle, more important, believe it or not, even in a pass-happy league for this defense. I want to stop the run on first and second, create those third and long, then corner and safety.
Let's churn through a couple Twitter questions here. Again, phenomenal Twitter questions. Thanks for the participation. And again, we can't get to all of them, but Alex from Chicago, how big a difference would trading for either Trent Williams or Joe Thuney help this Vikings team, and is it realistic? I've given this a lot of thought. So on one hand, Joe Thuney. Patriots are rumored to be in discussions for a potential Anthony Harris trade. Patriots like to have a really sturdy safety. That's a hallmark of a Bill Belichick defense. I can see why they'd want Harris. I could see why the Vikings would want Thuney, who is probably the prize guard on the market. The Vikings cut Josh Klein, which I think we can get to a little bit later, was maybe a rash decision, it seemed, in the moment, which makes you think that they've got some kind of plan. So Thuney for Harris, straight up, you making that deal?
Short answer, yeah, I am, because I just don't think that with what they've done so far, they've addressed the interior offensive line, which was the number one priority going in. Now you've created a big hole at wideout 2, and yeah, they move Harris, and you're right. I know what you're going to say. They got no safeties outside of Harrison Smith.
None. They got 2 on the roster.
But they've struck out so many times with interior linemen, whether it's Alex Boone in free agency, whether it's a David Yankee in the draft from Stanford. They need to just go. Sometimes you just need to cut your lot and just go get a proven guy. Don't like paying interior linemen big money. Joe Thuney's going to cost it. If anybody was going to get paid big money, my guy was Brandon Sheriff, who, by the way, yes, he got tagged, but he hasn't signed a new extension. So if we're talking about tagging guys and then trading, I still got my eye on Brandon Sheriff over Joe Thuney. Both guys have been tagged. They haven't signed that long-term deal. Saying that, I think Anthony Harris ultimately is moved. I don't know if it's for a player for player. I don't know if it's for an early second-round pick like we've been rumored to have. I would be all about that. And it sucks to lose Anthony Harris. I've watched him develop from an undrafted dude from Virginia into a ball-hawking, one of the best safety playmakers in the league. But it just seems like the writing's on the wall that a big move, I'm with you, Sam, a big splash has to be in the plans. I don't know who it is. It's probably not Jadeveon Clowney. He's going to want $20 million, man. He's going to want 18, 17 million. It's not going to happen.
No.
But it's probably going to be a player.
He wants Trent Williams money.
Which is
wild. We'll get to that.
Maybe it's Trent, maybe it's Sheriff, maybe it's Thuney, maybe it's an early second-round pick. But I think a big move is happening. I think Anthony Harris is probably in that mix.
So Trent Williams was also a part of that question. He's a lot more problematic. So Trent Williams didn't play in 2019, wants $20 million a year, which at age 31 might be an unrealistic demand. Unless you're doing like year-to-year betting on yourself, it's going to be hard to get $20 million, especially at that age with the, I think, kind of the headache label that he's gotten with all of this drama with Washington. Shocker, Washington involved with drama involving a player on an expiring contract. But the Vikings can't take on that cap hit. I mean, he would have to be cut and they would have to re-sign him, or they would have to restructure his deal and give him more money to reduce and that just gets messy. So I don't think I'd want to mess necessarily with Williams in like a long-term capacity. If they traded Harris for Williams straight up, so they kind of equal money, and they had 1 year, 1 year of Trent Williams, and the money's sort of a wash if you trade Harris, would you want Williams versus Reef at tackle? Because I think I would want to shoot for the stars and say, cross your fingers, knock on wood, Trent Williams can be elite and move Reef inside. Maybe this makes us really good on the offensive line.
Offensive line has been such a focal point, an area of weakness for the Minnesota Vikings. How long have we talked about every offseason? I know there's always other needs, but we have not had a dominant offensive line as a strength, despite Mike Zimmer wanting to be a physical, win in the trenches, run first team in so long. And we're talking Phil Lodeholt's rookie year with Steve Hutch, and who else was it? Brian McKinney? I can't even remember. It's been that long. I think trading a safety for a left tackle who, granted, hasn't played a year, but when he did play, was elite. You talk about shooting for the star. Trent Williams was elite. He was top 5, top 7 at worst at one of the most important positions on the O-line, protecting the blind side left tackle. There's no reason that I don't think Riley Reiff can't be a really good guard. Maybe he digresses a little bit, but even if he's middle of the pack, that's still a huge upgrade from what you had with Pat Elflein.
How about this theory? Reiff to left guard.
I love it.
Put Elflein at right guard where he played more at Ohio State.
Let's try it. And then you got Bradbury and Brian O'Neill. Those are your cornerstones, your bookends, your building blocks, you're building around. But Trent Williams, I mean, if the money's right, which, again, they don't have money. They don't have any money. Yeah, you move Anthony Harris and you're going to free up another 12. That helps a lot, but there's just not a lot of money to go make any big splash like Jadeveon Clowney. I think O-line has been such a priority for so long. You have a pure pocket passer that needs a clean pocket. He doesn't make plays with his feet and Kirk Cousins. You give him a clean pocket, though, and he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the entire league. Trent Williams, despite his age, despite going from a safety to an O-lineman, I think I would do that in a heartbeat, and it's a little bit of a risk. He hasn't played. His age is, 32, 33? You look at Andre Whitworth, man. Not all of them, but there's some great bookends.
I was lobbying for that.
That have played, that can play at a high level. Not just a guy, but play at a high level. 37 years old, Whitworth's going to be. He's been outstanding the last few years. So I certainly think it's a risk that's worth the reward. Will the Redskins do it? I don't know. Let's look at their safeties. I mean, nobody even talks about that. Yeah, they have a big need at safety, it seems. Well, Landon Collins, he got the big money. But the great thing about Anthony Harris, he can be known as a free or strong. He's great in the box, or he can play center field. Landon's a great strong safety in the box. But Sean Davis, I don't think, is a guy that really piques too many buddies' interest. Early pick from Pittsburgh that never panned out a few years ago. So I don't know. Anthony Harris, I don't think he's part of the long-term plans. If you can get a guy like Trent or Sheriff, punch it in a heartbeat.
Question from Tyler Kasmer. Vikings could have had a secondary of Quentin Dunbar, another Washington product, and Mac Alexander for $4 million and a fifth-round pick. Why didn't they make either of those moves? Now, the Dunbar one is a little more baffling to me. Alexander, and I think we've been saying this on the show, there was a level of discontent in Minnesota. He was upset with the way last season ended, making him play in Week 17, and frankly wasn't that happy at any point along the way. Now, I had his valuation, and you did too, Luke, $6-7 million. I mean, if Buster Screen can sign for $3.5 million per year on a 3-year deal, Mac Alexander's certainly worth more than that. I mean, he had grounds, unless he thinks that in Cincinnati he can play outside and get his valuation up to Trey Wayne's level, which is $14 million a year, which is nuts, then maybe it makes sense. But the fact that he was willing to sign a bridge deal for $4 million, that hurts more, at least in perception, because it looks like the Vikings were cheap. I think Alexander wanted out. I think that's pretty easily explained that he wanted a change of scenery. The Dunbar thing, if he's available for a fifth-round pick, and he was one of the best young corners in football last year, I don't get that lack of creativity. And I mean, they lose out on Nickel Roby-Coleman for $1 million.
Can't believe that.
Sendejo signs cheaply. Like you couldn't even get your in-house guy. Like what?
J-Ron Curse.
So doesn't that further the narrative that all this money that they supposedly have is being saved for one splash?
100%. There has to be some. We're all sitting here, and again, every offseason, Sam, me, you, Vikings fans, listeners at home, they get so frustrated with our front office during free agency. They build through the draft. They don't go sign splash players in free agency. And for the most part, it's worked really well. We haven't had a true rebuild year since Mike Zimmer took over. So that's worked out pretty well. I look at some of these moves, though, and it's clear to me the best franchises and front offices in the league find ways to turn day 3 picks into legitimate starters. Sure, they're a little old, but Jarrell Casey goes for, a 7th rounder? Fletcher Cox, same thing, not too long ago. Michael Bennett, not too long ago. There's been so many trades in the NFL landscape the last few years. Philly always seems to be in on the mix with Howie Roseman and a couple other GMs. If you're not calling around, you're just not doing the due diligence and really what you need to do to set yourself apart or give your team an advantage in the league today. Mac Alexander going for 1 year, $4 million. That just screams to me that Mike Zimmer wanted him out just as much as Mac wanted out. And I think there was a clearinghouse of look at the guys that left. And maybe Sendejo's not a part of that mix. I don't think he is. And maybe a couple others. But Diggs, the guy who called out authority, J-Ron Kearse, who got in trouble with the law.
Those two are really tight, by the way.
Very
I'm just
tight.
going to throw that out there, that the two guys that seem to be most upset with the organization for one reason or another, if you watch the locker room dynamics, those two were extremely
they're
close.
All over social media. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, you don't have to do that much digging to realize who's kind of buddy-buddy. And I think Mac Alexander calling out Zimmer and some other. Zimmer said, we're done. Look, we're already in kind of a horrible cap situation, a mini rebuild year anyways. I'm clearing these guys out, and I'm sending a message to the other 45 guys on this roster. This is our team. Somebody wants to be a me-first guy, F them. Let him go. That's not the way we're going to play. I don't care if we go 0-16. We're going to lose as a team. There's not going to be any me-first guys. Mac Alexander signs a 1 year, $4 million deal. To me, that tells me Mike Zimmer wanted him out just as badly as probably Mac wanted out. There was a clearing of the house. J-Ron, Diggs, Mac, some other guys that they love. Waynes. I mean, sure, some of them were inevitable anyways. But you look at the moves made, and I think certainly some were inevitable. Xavier Rhodes, Linval Joseph, they needed clear. Some of them you go, Dick, did you need to trade Diggs? I don't think so. There's a culture shock going on inside the Viking locker room. Starts at the top with Mike Zimmer.
Interesting. Yeah, it's going to be really different this year. And, some of the writers are going back and forth, who are going to be the ones to speak up this year? Like, we would always go to Stephen Weatherly, Anthony Harris, Everson Griffin. Those were three of the staples on defense that we could get information from. Xavier Rhodes, when he wanted to talk, was also very good. There's going to be new voices rising to the top. I think Afadio Denebo is going to be in that mix. Harrison Smith has always been very, very gracious, very accessible. But other than that,
not a vocal leader, though.
Apparently, Michael Pierce already made a pretty strong first impression, but there's just not a lot of voices. We don't know the identity of that group yet, which is going to be fascinating to see play out.
When you say voices, there's going to be new voices that need to step up. I hear leaders. There needs to be new leaders that step up. The new heart and soul. There has to be a new Everson Griffin voice or leader that steps up. Kirk Cousins, sure, he can be the guy. He's the quarterback. He certainly has a role to fill in that leadership role, no doubt. But there needs to be other leaders. Adam Thielen will probably be one of them. But who on defense? Mike Zimmer has to have a guy or two be the vocal leaders. Maybe it's the linebacking duo. Maybe it's the guys that played at UCLA together in college and then were drafted in the same team. They've extended the long-term extensions or contracts, I should say. Maybe those are the guys that need to be more vocal. Maybe it's going to be Barr and Kendricks. I don't know. But somebody needs to step up. We'll see who it is. And again, there's another. I'm in denial. I'm in stage one denial. I won't believe Everson's gone until I see it.
I love it. I love that you're holding out hope.
I cannot believe it.
I'm still holding out for hope for another Andrew Sendejo reunion and Marcus Sherrills. Bring them all back. Bring them all back. Sure. So we addressed this a little bit, maybe Reef moving to guard, but what are the next steps for you at guard? Because Josh Klein is still sitting out there potentially. We're also watching Taylor Heineke scoring a 2-point conversion. Yes.
Game winner.
Yes. I love that pull from 2017 preseason. There's no right guard, there's no left guard right now. Here's my question, because I wasn't here last week. I believe the Klein news broke while you were on the air with the Reef.
Correct.
I think.
Correct.
So you talked about it.
We were shocked.
Here's my thought, because I was initially shocked, still am, just based on the money savings being so negligible. But why Josh Klein get cut from New England twice? Why did the Titans release him 1 year after an extension? Why did the Vikings just release him 1 year after a 3-year deal? What is secretly wrong with Josh Klein? And I'm kind of joking a little bit, but sometimes now I remember a film session we had with Mike Zimmer. This is 2015, 16, and I feel comfortable saying it now. This stuff is a little hush-hush at the time, but he laid out video. This is the year that Matt Khalil really struggled, and Charlie Johnson was next to him, and he laid out a lot of plays where it looked maybe to the naked eye like Matt Khalil was the one who was screwing up. was actually Charlie Johnson's fault. And I wonder if the evaluation on Josh Klein is maybe a little less glowing than you might see on Pro Football Focus, who thinks he's, average to above average. But why can't he stick anywhere when all of his numbers, his analytics are generally pretty good? Good pass blocker. Why are teams extending him to these long-term deals and cutting him? It's hard to wrap my head around it unless there's actually something at fault with Josh Klein. I don't understand that part of it.
I'm at a lot. Body odor, bad breath caused by gingivitis.
Back knee.
I don't know. Back knee. I have no idea. I didn't realize until you just brought it up that there's a history here. There's a pattern here. So that's a little red light bulb goes off in the back of my head that maybe there is something that we don't know about. You were in the locker room every week. You didn't notice anything from a personality standpoint. It didn't seem.
Klein,
I've never heard anything.
Along with and Riley Reif's the same way. No time to talk to the media.
They're all linemen.
I asked Josh Klein a question last year. This is prior to, which game was it? Former coach, Packers, blanking on who's the Packers coach? Blanking on his name.
Yeah, I know you talk about.
Head coach Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
Asked him about Matt LaFleur since he was in Tennessee. Josh Klein was in Tennessee.
Sure.
Just wanted a nice little answer about Matt LaFleur. I'm not going to look in the past. Not going to go back there. Not going to talk about it. Which he probably learned from Belichick in New England. But anyway, he was not a talkative fellow. He wasn't exactly a big leader. I don't think he was bringing those qualities to the table. At any rate,
he was their most consistent.
Kind of was. He had concussion issues. But
if you want to go back to Matt Khalil, well, really, it was Charlie Johnson's fault. Well, first of all, we know Matt Khalil sucked. I mean, he just wasn't. He wasn't clear. Maybe it was Charlie Johnson's fault to some degree, but Matt Khalil still clearly couldn't hang in the NFL for whatever reason. But I don't see. I mean, we go back and watch the film, and he's been pretty rock solid. There's an assignment or two here or there. Guess what? It's your weakest position, both starters and depth, and he was your most consistent player. You're going to dump him to save what, like $1.5 million after the dead cap? There's got to be something more to it. Maybe he ends up re-signing with the Vikes, to be honest, like Everson Griffin's going to do. I don't know. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense from a cap move, from a positional move. I do know this. Drew Samia, pencil him in as one of the starting guards. He has to be.
He has so much to gain.
Yeah, there was they moved up to get him in the 4th round. He was the last of that second tier of interior guards that I really like coming out of Oklahoma. Blocked for Kyler Murray and Joe Mixon, some other really good offensive linemen in that group. But he is the guy right now that's penciled in at right guard or left guard. I don't know, but he's clearly a part of the future plans, which that makes me excited. That tells me that they like what they saw. They got to see him redshirt a little bit. They got to see him in training camp, 3rd string. But then he started week 17 during the whatever game you want to call it, the where they benched half their starters. Same with Oli Udoh. So they clearly liked enough what they saw that whether it's left or right guard, Drew Samia will be a starting offensive lineman for the Vikings next year.
Couple cheap guards that I'd be targeting right now if I were the Vikings, sort of in the Brett Jones, Tom Compton vein. Michael Schofield III.
Michigan, I like
from the Chargers, 29 years old, cheap, top 20 pass blocking guard last year. Ron Leary from Denver, number 23 pass blocker last year, 31 years old, veteran. Those guys could probably be attained 1 year, a couple million, if that. Who has the most to gain from all these departures? Who can step up? Maybe we're not even realizing it at this point, but who is going to blossom because of all these voids that need to be filled? I think clearly at corner, there are going to be some unexpected heroes this year. And maybe they're not heroes, maybe they're goats, but Chris Boyd. Mike Zimmer loves Chris Boyd, and he was sort of building Boyd up at the end of last year saying, when I see guys thriving on special teams, that's often an indication that they're going to be pretty good.
He was the best special teamer.
At corner. Phenomenal. Outstanding as a gunner.
And Anthony Harris had that same route. Sendejo was always a special teams guy. I think that there's 2 positions when you look at the Vikings positional groups, top to bottom, all of them, lay them all out on the table. I think there's 2 positional groups that under Mike Zimmer and Andre Patterson are always going to be some strengths. Look at this guy in the background over here.
What are those sunglasses?
Look at Oakley. We got a Xavier. No, we got a Chris Boyd interview popping up here, and Sam's in the background. Just the paparazzi.
Sunglasses clearly ineffective because I'm still squinting like a
Who's
weirdo.
That, Judd? Who else is in
Judd,
there?
Jacob Blazer, Dave Campbell. The whole gang. Chris Long looking from the background.
I was in this. I don't know if this scrum, but I got one Chris Boyd interview up here somewhere from training camp. But there's two positional groups, Sam. D-line under Andre Patterson and the secondary under Mike Zimmer. They don't need first-round talent. They don't need a $60 million free agent signing. Guys will produce because it's a system. It's the defense. It's the way they build. So knowing that, Ifedi is going to continue to shine. I really like Ifedi as a starter. I think Jaleel Johnson or Jalen Holmes, one of the two, could start to see an increase or a tick. But the other guy in D-line, Armin Watts and Hercules Mataafa, I think one of those guys show and flash the potential to be playmakers at their respective positions. So Ifedi's going to continue to climb, but Armin Watts or Hercules Mataafa could really thrive into the system. Maybe as role guys, maybe as just third down pass rushers, but whatever their role is, I think they're going to be really good. And then corner, I think Holton Hill and Chris Boyd, they're never going to be all-stars, but I think they're going to be rock solid. I think they're going to be more of a not just a Band-Aid, more of a maybe some building blocks than the GOATs, as you call them. I don't think they're going to have as many bad plays as they do good plays. Let's put it that way. They may not be pick six guys. They may not have 13 pass deflections, but I think they're going to be rock solid. And you're going to add one more guy in the mix anyways through the draft. So I think D-line and corner, despite how naked it looks right now after free agency, I'm not worried. I'm really not.
Real quick question from Finn. Do you think edge is a need early in the draft, or can they wait to address it in the later rounds? In other words, where's the sweet spot for edge rusher this year if they want to draft one?
That's a good question. I don't see it as a huge strength later in the draft. I think that the top few tiers are really good. There's the kid from Penn State, Gross Matus, who I think will not go in the first round but has late first round potential. Not a lot of people are talking about him. I think that could be the highest you would see the Vikings look at 58. Now, again, if Anthony Harris gets traded for early second-round pick, things change. But Chason from LSU is going to go in the middle of the first round. Got him projected to go to the Falcons. Another speed rusher for Dan Quinn. Chase Young may be the best player in the draft. He's going to go early. But I don't see a ton of great depth on day 3. But you find Everson Griffin's on day 3, too. You found B-Rob's in the 4th round. You find Ifedi's 7th round or later. And again, that's why I say I'm not too worried that Andre Patterson won't mold one of these guys into being really good. Maybe not a Pro Bowl, but really good. A position you don't have to worry about.
I think there are other positions that are more wisely addressed on the first day, probably first 2 days is how I would answer it. Question from, let me get to this one. I can't remember who. I apologize for not knowing who asked this question. A lot of questions today, but what do you think the value is if they trade up? Where do you think they could get to? And you wrote about this at zonecoverage.com. And what do you think they could get if they traded back?
It's
both ways.
I can tell you what the value should be. It's just so hit or miss. Will the teams actually offer that? Teams have a general consensus, and they go off the value board, what each draft slot should be worth in points. I could see them, hey, listen, we were rumored that maybe the Vikings were trading Anthony Harris and moving their 22nd pick to 10 with the Browns. That seems plausible to me. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibilities from a value perspective. If they move down, I think if they move down, you're talking about, sure, you could get an extra 3rd round pick or a couple day 3s, but I think they'd be setting up for the future. I think they're looking for an extra 1st, if not extra 2nd, for next year. They already have an extra 4th.
You're not moving a 1st unless you get a starter in return. I would say.
Yep, correct. And teams sometimes, especially for a quarterback, maybe Jacob Eason from Washington's that guy, Jacob Fromm, Jordan Love, maybe somebody wants to move up to 25. But if you're moving from 25 all the way down to, mid-30s, you're going to need an extra first-round pick or second-round pick next year. Here's an example, Sam. The Colts moved down last year from 22, and they basically swapped with the Redskins. They got their second last year. They moved all the way down into the early second round, and they got Washington's second-round pick this year. So they traded their first-round pick for DeForest Buckner, but they have 2 early second-round picks this year because they moved back. So could it be an early second-round pick next year? I don't know. Then you got 2 2s, you got 2 3s. You're loaded with picks.
Extra fourth already next year.
Extra fourth next year already. You've already kind of shown us that the blueprint is probably we're going to regress a little bit this year. So maybe we'd rather stockpile for next year. Maybe that could be the case. I don't see them as a team that trades up with their first 2 picks. If they want to stockpile and move up with some of their extra ammo, next year's fourth and some of their third, fourth, fifth, sixth, that could be like the Cordell Patterson year when they drafted Floyd, Xavier Rhodes, they moved back up for Patterson. That seems more plausible than moving all the way up for like a top 10 pick to go get Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs. I don't see that, at least not this year. Just with the moves they've shown us,
sure,
seems like they're not forfeiting this year. I don't think they're going to be any worse than like an 8-8, but they seem to be setting up 2021 as the big year.
Wouldn't it be appropriate though if 2020 is an exact duplicate of 2013 when you go corner, receiver, 3 tech in the first round, move back into the first 3 areas of need. I mean, it could be an exact parallel if they wanted to give some of that 3rd round ammo, maybe the extra 4th next year, and get back into the first round. Probably have to give up their 2nd round pick as well.
Depends on how the board falls, too. Yeah. I mean, nobody thought Sharif Floyd was going to be there, Depends how the board falls. And I will say this about drafting a receiver. If they trade up and draft a wideout, they love him. You don't have to worry about that. They are so confident they love him as far as his ceiling and how good he could be, because this draft is so loaded at wideout, you probably don't need to trade up unless you're just infatuated with the guy and think he can be a number 2 or number 1 type of receiver for a really long time. That's how loaded from a depth perspective this draft class is. Saying that, they are known. Rick Spielman, there is a history, there's a pattern here, Sam, that they love their first-round guys, and they're not afraid to move up to get extra first-round guys. Why? Because clearly they don't think they're going to be around to the 2nd round, and you get the 5th-year rookie option to pay them cheap rookie money. And then what they do, they trade back later in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round and trade back and stockpile those 7th-round picks. Harrison Smith, Matt Khalil, 2 first-round picks that year. You just mentioned the 3 first-round picks in 2013 that they've had. Anthony Barr, they trade up to go get Teddy Bridgewater. Rick Spielman's known as a Trader Rick. He moves back a lot, but he also trades up quite a bit when there's a specific guy he targets.
One football question, one fun question to end the show. Which departed Viking will have the most success elsewhere?
So
Waynes, Alexander, Weatherly, Curse, Griffin, Diggs, a lot of options.
I think that basically you're asking who's not a system guy. Who didn't thrive because they played in Mike Zimmer's system? I think Stephon Diggs is going to be Stephon Diggs. I think he's going to struggle a little bit with Josh Allen because I don't think Josh Allen's very good, and I don't think Josh Allen is accurate at all. I think that's going to be an issue with him. I still think Stephon Diggs is one of the best 10 receivers in the league.
Yep.
It's a matter of how they get him and create plays for him. I think he's going to be good, but
not what you would consider success. I mean, success is 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think it's going to be more, and I do think he's going to make Allen look better, but I just don't know if it's going to be what Diggs wants to see.
Correct.
So yeah, I agree with you. Diggs is not the answer.
I don't think Diggs is ever going to be fully satisfied and happy. He's hungry for more, which is good. That's a good thing to have. For the money that they were signed for and where they ended up, I think out of them all, I love Stephen Weatherly. Waynes is going to be solid. He's always a good number 2. Mack, for how cheap he was, that could be great. But my guy's J-Ron Kearse.
You love that guy.
He was signed for so cheap. He can play multiple positions. They need a safety/big nickel in Detroit after trading Darius Slay. And I think Matt Patricia just knows how to maximize guys like that. I think J-Ron Kearse, out of them all, for how cheap he was, is going to overreach his value, overreach what they signed him for, and end up signing a bigger deal the following year.
And from Dog Eddie Crane to end the show, he wants to know, how has our hygiene been since the last Football Machine recording?
I'm at about a 2, man. Maybe a 3 out of 10. I'm not doing good, dude.
I've worn, and this is, I think it's more child-related than it is quarantine-related.
You got the dad card you can pull.
Worn a lot of sweats. More sweats than I'd like to admit. I've showered less than I'd like to admit.
Yeah.
Did shower today, though. Wait, no. No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I didn't want to burst your bubble, but
I can't even remember what day it is.
Shower today.
What time of day it is.
Yeah, you got the dad card for sure. I think my thing is no gym, because gym I'd always shower after balling out and slam dunking on Tommy's face down in the paint. Me and Tom go to Lifetime a lot. We'd play ball. You'd always shower right after. Steam and shower. It's great. Now without that, I've tried to go out and run once in a while. I'll shower after that, but there's just not that normal routine anymore to hit the shower. So I'm with you, man. It's been a struggle letting the beard go a little bit, because why not? Whatever. There's just
no shave pandemic.
Yeah, it's just
hashtag.
Things aren't great.
Yeah, let's pump some hand sanitizer and let's get the heck out of here.
Bathing in this Purell hand sanitizer. Sorry, the knockoff.
Zone cover. I don't know if you've seen the latest Curb Your Enthusiasm, but do not get that close to the flame.
Oh, okay.
Do not get it close to the flame.
Is that the last one, by the way?
Finale.
I've kept up every week. I've been a little behind. Grinding draft, getting into some new shows. Tiger King, I think it's called. Is that what it's called? Tiger King?
Yeah.
I got into that last night. Send me, always, me and the wife looking for new show recommendations, new movie recommendations. I don't care if it's streaming. I don't care if it's a documentary. I don't care if I have to rent it. Always looking for some new stuff, especially knowing we're going to be quarantined for a while.
No doubt. Be safe. Be healthy, everybody. New content every day at zonecoverage.com to give you the diversion that you're looking for. New podcasts as well on the podcast network. He's Luke. I'm Sam on Twitter at Luke_Spinman NFL at Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week from a bunker somewhere. We will talk to you, though. Thanks for listening.